Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk Food Safety with Tia and Jill. We are happy you are here today.
Yes, thank you for spending some of your Wednesday with us. So, whether that's
Yes,
Wednesday morning, day, evening, we're happy you can be here because we like to bring topics forth that we hear people chatting about.
yeah,
And let's have some new perspectives, some insights. And we love when you let us know that you're here and what it is that brought you here today.
yes. So please add that in the chat. Say hello. Where are you watching from?
Mhm.
And why are you here with us today? What brought you here in this space with us?
Yeah, and maybe I'm kind of like dating myself, but the title was almost Wizard of Oz like lions and
Yes,
tigers and bears. Oh my! But instead,
yes.
like mentors, sponsors, advisors, and coaches. Oh my!
Yes, yes.
Right?
Which
Because
you're not dating yourself, even though Wizard of Oz is
it
technically
is old.
dated, right? But there's been different versions of the Wizard of Oz over the years. There's going to be a new Wicked coming out. I love Wicked. Have you seen Wicked?
I love it. Yeah.
I love Wicked. So there's going to be a new Wicked coming out, and so it's not really dating yourself
No, that's
because
truu. But
there
I
there's some
loved it as
modern versions.
I liked it as a kid, and my kids watched it, and they're like, "That is so weird." And I'm like, "Well, I guess it
It is
can
quite
look different."
that's true. It is quite weird. That's true. But
Yeah.
it's entertaining.
Yes, it can be. I don't know if you all find that part entertaining, but hello, Kimberly. It's good to see you from Massachusetts.
Just
And
see it.
Angela, how fun. We just connected. So great to have you here with us.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here. Yes, thank you for connecting with us and being here today. We can see your comments, so please add your perspective, add your questions, add your comments to the comment section, and we'll make sure to either address it or even the audience that are listening, right, can see your comments and
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
address.
And I love to know your kids were spellbound. I was spellbound. I thought it was fascinating, those ruby slippers, but a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. So we have this theme going on today, and it's really around these different types of people that's
Mhm.
there to really help you, right? Help you move forward in whatever task you're working on. And there are different types of people that can help you get there. And so we're talking about many of them today.
We are. And I think part of it is, we just launched our community on the first. So it's
Yes.
day 16, day 17. If you haven't joined, go out to our website, foodsafetykatalyst.com, and join.
Mhm.
It's open to everybody, but our goal is how do we continue some of these conversations offline? And of course, we're just getting started in building that community and space, but we'd love to have you there.
Yes.
But part of why I mention that is because there's spaces like our community. And what does that serve and what does that provide for people? But I've also seen in different groups that I'm either in or affiliated with or just happen to see that there seem to be a lot of mentoring networks popping up
Mhm. Oh
where
yeah.
there's this connecting mentors and mentees. And what does that all mean? And it almost feels like it's a fad. So that's why it seemed like today is a good day to talk about what are, like you said, Tia, what are these different roles and how do they work? How do they support you?
Mhm.
How do you support them?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the mentoring space, like people recognize the word mentor and mentoring, and it's something that's been around for a long time, like the other ones. But I would say, even in the spaces when you think about women, right? Like we talk about, oh, women need mentors, women need mentors,
Mhm.
people need mentors, right? Young people, like what Kimberly's talking about, need
We
mentors.
need reverse mentorship, right? There's mentors,
All
mentors
the
everywhere.
above, all the above. But we also need other people in our
Mhm.
corner, not just mentorship. And so we hope during the conversation today that that you're able to take something away on, do I have the right mentors in my circle? But do I also have sponsors and advisors and coaches in my
Mhm.
corner that can help me with the different parts of my life and where I'm going in my career?
Ah, well, and Kimberly, thank you for sharing. I love that you leaned into being curious about what someone meant when they said, "Oh, you're like a hippie," right? Like,
Hmm.
what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
because we all have these different stories or words that we affiliate even with the mentors, advisors, sponsors, coaches, oh my.
Yeah. Yes. And
So
that's important. That's important because knowing what you're going to get from someone, knowing what you're going to get from, someone that you onboard as your mentor or as your coach, right? Like those people serve two different functions. And so having that clarity, right, in terms, having that clarity in the actions is important.
yeah. And Angela, a great point here. There are, quite a few of these mentor matching websites that are coming up, and like, what does that mean? And how do you know if it's a fit for you? And then how would you even find a mentor? There's definitely, I've heard people in the industry talk, and probably outside the industry, that, well, you can't be matched. It just happens naturally. Well, I think perhaps at times it does, and maybe for different people, but I would say not always.
Yeah.
And so how do we get the support that we need?
Yeah. One of my best mentors, we were matched through an organization, and he was and still is fantastic. So but he served that purpose of being a mentor, which is very different than a sponsor, an advisor, a coach. And so this is important to us and something that's in our RAM, because at Catalyst, our mission is to transform how people lead in food. And so we focus on how do people become more authentic leaders in this space, because we know when people can show up as their authentic selves, when they can really lead from this place of not just authenticity, but empowerment and confidence, we see that they achieve more. And ultimately, it's tied to business growth and business goals and business KPIs that we're all tracking, right? It really starts with leadership. And Jill and I, we are certified coaches. So we've played the spot of being a mentor, right? We've been mentors, we've been sponsors, we've been advisors. We're also certified coaches. And what we found is that incorporating these coaching principles into our leadership development programs, into our workshops and speaking events, into our food safety culture work that we do, it's so important and different. And we like to call it our magic sauce, because of the role that coaches play in this realm of culture and leadership development.
Yeah. Yes. So, you know what? I think this is a great time to even dive in and talk about these differences. Because Tia, even as you talk about coaches, right? Prior to being a certified professional coach, I would have been like, well, of course I coach my team. And I would have had no clue that there was an actual difference between what I thought I was doing, which was probably advising, guiding, some mentorship, a little blended in, but not really coaching.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe even doing a blend of these pieces where you feel like I'm coaching, but in reality, you're coaching some, you're advising some, you're mentoring some. But terms matter, and having that clarity in terms, like Kimberly pointed out, is important.
It is. And I think from that, the core, as we go into talking about the role on each of these, is that like we all come with a journey and a path.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And where I go is part of my lived experience and how I process and discern what my role, what my journey looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think as we talk about these different roles, the one that I always think about is, how do we have people who maybe play in these roles, or how do we play in these roles for people without pulling them off their path?
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I've certainly had people who, with the best of hopes, we call them advice monsters, right? It's all with good intent. But from doing that, I doubted myself and where I thought I should go. And I went down this path, not the right path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think as we talk about these, to me, that's something that really comes up. I don't know about for you, Tia, but it's something I like to be really mindful of, regardless of the role that we have invited someone into play for us, or that we're playing for someone.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because people are on their paths. So, in each of these roles, you're playing a piece of it, which we're going to dive into, to help guide them on their path. right? In whatever way you're doing that. But the goal is for them to continue down their path or hop off if that's what they want to do, right? But it's really around what is it that they see for themselves and how can you help them get there in whatever role makes sense that you all are connecting with. And so, Joe, when I think about your story of someone giving a bunch of advice and you're trying to be better, right? You want to do what's best, so you go and take the advice, but it just doesn't sit right with where you're going, and now it's even more confusion right there, or even more like, man, like I thought this was supposed to work, but it's not working for me. Is it me, right? Situation. So it's important that as you play these roles, you are that you're aware of that. I think it's that awareness of you don't want to pull people from their path if that's the path that they should be on. And if it's the path they shouldn't be on, right, they need to discover that for themselves so that they have this full buy-in to what path they jump to. Right?
Yeah. So let's start with a mentor, since that one kind of is what bubbled up to kind of fuel this show today.
Yeah.
So a mentor, there's many definitions, but the one we're going to share today is a mentor is someone who advises you based on their experience.
So many times a mentor is either in your organization or in a similar type role, or have had a similar type role, maybe have had a career path that you're interested in. So they've done some work before. So you're looking to understand their experiences and see how it relates to you. Right. It's really around, which I think is an important piece of, as you think about you being on your path, right? A mentor doesn't have all the answers for you. They're really there to talk about their experience and hope that it may help you in your experience as you go down a similar path. And that could be a career path. It could also be women, right? We see women mentor circles where really that common thread is around being a woman in the workforce, a woman in agriculture, a woman in CPG, a woman in insert. That's also that commonality that's there.
It is. I think about like what type of questions I would have for a mentor, or what type of situations I would look to them. For example, maybe having a difficult team member that you're working with, or something that comes up a lot with food safety culture is, how do I get management buy-in? Like, how have you done it in other functions of the organization? Looking to someone who's already done some of the things that you're looking to do or that you're struggling with, to say, how did you do it, so that I can learn from what you've done.
Right, exactly. The mentor that I talked about, which was a fantastic mentor to me, I was kind of going through this conversation I need to have with my manager, and he really helped me understand the possibilities that what paths I can go down with this manager. And one thing is that, he's given me sort of like this advice based on his experience on like, okay, you could do this and this is what might happen, right? This is what might happen. This is what might happen here. And we were in the same organization. So he also understood at another level, because he was at a higher level in the organization. He understood even what that means from like a talent standpoint, or what it could mean for my career, what it could mean for my movement, so he had those pieces that he was able to really provide this advice based on his experience. One thing that I loved about him, though, is that he kept it open, right? Like, these are your choices. This is what I kind of see, right? This is from my experience. You ultimately have to make that decision on which path you're going to go down. And so that's one thing, like when we talk about staying on your path, or not pulling people off their path that they're on, he did a really good job of advising based on their experience, but leaving it open to really, you can choose whichever path you want to go down. And I'm going to mentor you through whatever you choose.
And I think it's really fascinating, because even as we think about even our mentor, right, they can give us advice based on their experiences. So let's say they are like, I have these two experiences to share with you. As a mentee, discerning that those are the experiences that person had,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that there aren't additional possibilities available to you.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because sometimes I think we feel like, oh, well, they said we could do this or that or this. Like, which one will I pick? Well, what's behind door number 4?
Yeah. I like that you brought that up, because in each of these, as we talk through them, as the person that's getting the advice or being coached or really receiving, you have a piece to play in this as well. You have to also be thinking about what is best for you, what path you want to go down, what are you most passionate about? Because in this case, a mentor, they're talking about their own passions, their own direction, because that's what they know, and that's what they are giving you. You have to also do the work to be more self-aware and understand, where your passions are coming from and where you think you may want to go, and keeping it open that, because you don't know all the paths right now, just looking at it, being open to explore and being open to be curious, and just having your mind and mindset be open, so that you can discover these things. But it's an active thing to be a mentee, right? You can't just sit back and hope that someone's going to dump this wisdom on you and all of a sudden you're going to be like, I now know, right? Like, that's not the way it works. It is an active, it's an active spot for you to be in.
Yes. Which kind of leads into an advisor, because I think an advisor plays a role similar to a mentor, because once again, they're giving advice. And typically when we give advice, it's coming because of things we've experienced.
Yeah.
But I think in an advisor, it's also similar where, I think, Tia, about, us being small business owners, there's people we reached out to for like advice, like, how would you do this?
Yeah.
Which is obviously very similar to a mentor, but I think it's almost even like broader open for, like, we just need your advice.
Right.
And it's a very unknown area.
Right. And it might not work for us necessarily because we're in a different space, but there might be some nuggets here, right, for us to pull out. But you're right. I think it's more broader on, like, you're just asking for some general advice. How do I show up as a leader? How do I work on finances? How do I, like, just those broader things that someone can give you advice about?
Yeah. And I think it also applies when we think about even day to day, perhaps in maybe our roles. Thinking about a time where we had to ship out some samples or some product. And so we go to our logistics folks and they're like, well, how do you want it shipped? And I'm like, I have no clue. Can you advise me on the best methods that help maintain temperature, product integrity, this?
Right. Yeah.
What advice can you give?
Yeah.
So I think even that is something that is food safety quality professional, something that when we invite people to share their gifts with us to solve a common problem, it really helps us create some of the relationships that are important when we think about the overarching culture in our organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, if you are being advised, you too have, work to do in this relationship, where recognizing a lot of it is just self-awareness of that person is not living in your shoes, right? You're asking them something very specific. They understand what they have at their disposal, right? To give you options, but knowing that's based on them and their experiences.
Yeah. At the beginning of the show, you probably heard me say the advice monsters. I don't know about you, but I definitely have some people in my life who feel like when I share information or I'm just explaining, maybe it's not even necessarily venting.
Yeah.
They have a need to always give advice about it. And I've learned, like, kind of where that comes from, and I've learned how to maybe filter or screen that. But I think that's something that as humans, we have this innate want to help people.
Yeah.
When we feel like they need help. And I think that is a very noble place to be. But I also have learned, being in this space now, about how to really be more mindful of that. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I've done this just with my kids yesterday. Well, let me do this for you. And they're like, I don't need your help.
Right. Yeah.
They were just sharing with me.
Right.
And when I tried to step in and give advice, essentially what I was telling them was, I don't think you can handle this. Or let me pick this up for you. And that
Right.
wasn't
Yeah.
what it needed at the time. So I love your advice, Tia, of even if you are the one getting advice, you still have an active role to play
Yeah.
in understanding, in asking, and even sometimes saying, thank you.
Hmm.
Actually, here's what I need from you today.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great point, especially as you move into leadership, because you're so used to giving your advice or giving your opinion or giving the solution, right? Like,
Mhm.
I am the one that's supposed to give the solution because I own these lines, or I'm over the lab, or I'm, whatever, right? Like, you were the person that was executing.
Mhm.
As you move into leadership and you are leading others, you're not the one that should be giving all the solutions, right? You should be helping your team discover those solutions and implement the solutions they come up with. And
Yeah.
so when you feel like you're helping, right, like you want to help, and so you want to step in and help your team, maybe that might not be the time to do it.
Mhm.
It's part of that leadership to be able to say, okay, what do my team need from me? Right? Do they need that mentor? Do they need that advisor? Or do they need someone to step back and have them discover?
And as you talk about that, it reminds me that seems to be a space that when we have clients that initially come to us and are experiencing friction in their role about their workload's too big, they're not getting enough done, their people aren't maybe doing all the things that they expect them to do or the right way, that sometimes the place that they maybe sit is in a space where they feel like they have to be the advisor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still the technical expert, so I need to advise on what you're doing. I need to
Right.
advise on how you're doing it, and I need to advise on this. When in reality, our role is, like you said, to step back and empower them to make decisions without
Right.
advising to the degree that we're used to.
Yeah, yeah. And that's hard to do, right? That's
Super hard.
easier
Like,
said than done.
yeah, I've been there, right? Because we all feel like we're getting kind of rewarded for being a good advisor, and we step
Right.
into a new role that's, kind of higher on the hierarchy scale, and we think, well,
Mhm.
we just need to keep doing what we do. But
Right.
reality is we should be changing what we do every time we change roles.
Exactly. Exactly. The next one is a sponsor. And a sponsor sometimes get confused with a mentor, but really a sponsor is someone that advocates for you. And many times they advocate for you when you're not in the room. And so a sponsor could be a mentor as well. You could talk to them. You could share experiences with them. But sometimes a sponsor might not even be someone that you talk to regularly, but they still advocate for you in different places, either within the organization or within your circle of influence. They're the people that's talking about you, advocating for you, saying, yes, Jill would be a great person to have in this role, or, oh, you should tap on Jill and get her thoughts about it.
Mhm. And Tia, when you first told me about this from one of your previous, in a previous role, previous company, I was like, that's genius.
Yeah.
It was a term, I mean, quite literally, that I wasn't familiar with in this format and with this definition. And I thought, how is it I have been working for years and this is the first time I've come across this really powerful role? And when
Yeah.
I say powerful, not only for if you have someone who's a sponsor for you, but how we can also be sponsors for others,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I mean, this is essentially kind of like, those referrals. Like, there's
Mhm.
nothing better than somebody going, you know what, absolutely, you need to, you know, talk to this person, or they would be the one, or work with
Mhm.
that company. That is someone who's being a sponsor because it's this internal desire to help you succeed and in
Yeah.
the right places and make
Right.
sure people have awareness of you.
Exactly. It's one of the most powerful roles that exist for a person to be able to help. It's one of the things where now I feel like sponsorship has been almost like a veil for so long, where it's like you might have a sponsor. Do I have a sponsor? I don't know, right? I need to find one. It's almost been like behind the scenes. But now I would say people are starting to talk more about it, but they're also starting to talk more about it when it comes to women. Because when you talk about like mentorship, it's like women, we don't need more mentors. We actually need more sponsors. We need people that's going to get us into the room. We need people who are going to help us get promoted. And not just help us get promoted by giving us a whole bunch of work. So we say we've done the work, right? We need someone to say, yes, Jill should be promoted into this role. And this is why. And I'm advocating for Jill to be promoted, even when she's not here, even if she doesn't know that I'm doing that. That's what we need, right? And even when we talk about it from minorities in corporate America, we need more sponsors, people that are advocating for us, advocating for our development, advocating for our growth. And so sponsorship is a really important role, and it's one that we should talk more and more about.
We should. And I think about the role a sponsor plays, and really it's, having this belief in people. And as leaders, isn't this part of our role, is having belief in people?
Yes.
Because oftentimes we need to help believe in someone, and before they even realize where they can go or what they can do. Because once again, we all live in these boxes of our own perception of where we are or what we can do. And so sponsors help take people even further past that.
Yeah.
And it's not that, once again, that you have to go down that path, but it's opening possibilities for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if they're willing to put themselves, their reputation, their word on the line, just as Catalyst, we have some sponsors that are really amazing. And I was almost in, I don't want to say disbelief. I mean, because of course I'm biased and I think what we do is incredible. But when we had somebody walk show floors when we have people walk the show floor with us, or even we get calls from people who are like, hey, so-and-so told us to call you.
Yeah.
Like, you're the ones who can help us. Or we're on the show floor and they're like, are you not working with Jill and Tia yet? Because if you aren't, they're the ones who are going to help solve this problem for you or help you get where you want to go. And I was blown away by that generosity and that belief that those sponsors share and gift to us.
Yes. It's one of those things that's like, when you discover that someone has been playing this role, it's like, it warms your heart. It's like, wow, you've been talking about this. You've been, sharing this information. Of course, we want everyone to do that. But when you take this role of a sponsor, and it's around this intentionality, where you're intentionally trying to, because you believe in the mission, because you believe in the people, you want to get them out there. You want them to be in spaces that are not just beneficial for them, but beneficial to the people that they're going to work with and interact with. And so, it's one of those things that's definitely really warming in a space. When I think about leaders stepping into being a sponsor, it's also very warming for yourself to be able to provide opportunities. I like the way you said it. It opens opportunities. And again, you have the person that's being sponsored, you have a responsibility as well. Like, you don't have to walk through that door of opportunity, right? You cannot, you can pivot, you can do whatever you would like to do. That role is just opening opportunities, or presenting opportunities, or creating opportunities for you.
Yeah. And, it's, since we've talked about it, I probably served as a sponsor, but not very intentionally. I wasn't as conscious about it, certainly not stepping into it as much and as big as I should have for some other people that I had known. So now I'm doing that different. Like, there are people that, like, we just got off a call with someone, like, have you talked to this person yet?
Yeah.
It's part of like helping someone have a voice in a space where they normally wouldn't.
Absolutely.
And it is like, I get tickled to be able to do that for someone, to think, wow, that's going to hopefully open a door, or at least an idea for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we have coaches, right? And the coach's role is to help you discover. versus giving you advice based on their own experience or general, or advocating for you in spaces. A coach works directly with you to help you discover things about yourself, things about where you want to go, whatever it is that you need to discover. Your coach is there to help you. And this is one of the ones, right? Probably one of the reasons why you found coaching, Jill, because the story you told about your mentor and really how that just moved you off your path, where a coach allows you, it's all about staying on your path or doing whatever is best for you, and you really discover which way to go, what action to take.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I love about coaching is the perspective that, that we see, and I say that we see, and like coaches, and like it's still always something I'm working on, but every single person is whole and complete.
Yeah.
Like you already are resourceful. Sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper to be like, well, how do I find that?
Yeah.
But our goal is to, how do we ask you bigger questions? How do we use different tools so that you get to tap in to all of the knowledge and the experiences, and you have all these gifts, like tapping into those, because that will help unlock, once again, the possibilities that you have just waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the, that is the key reason why we use coaching based principles in our programs, because our goal, we talked about our mission earlier of transforming the way we lead in food. The way to do that is for people to discover their authentic self as a leader and be able to lean into that. I can't do that for you, right? Like Jill can't do that for you. If we could, we would be billionaires, number one, but we'll also be at the point, right, that people don't feel burnt out, overworked, or feel like their manager do not understand them, is not connected to the values of their organization, and right, like all the things you hear about culture, food safety culture, all that would be figured out if we could just tell people what to do and they just go and do it, and then it's all them, right? That's not the way people work. Right? That's not how humans behave. They're most successful at doing the things that they are doing when they have this full buy-in themselves, because they have discovered that it's a part of who they want to be.
Yes. And it kind of links to the other day, my husband also works in food and does stuff, not directly food safety, but obviously everything is a tangent, or, comes to it. But, we were just talking in general about like helping, and his group, they had talked about like, when do we lean into things that are purely for the other person? So for example, right, like we volunteer and we're like, yay, we get to help other people. But really in that cycle, part of that is because it gives us something as well. It maybe gives us joy or happiness or a feeling of purpose, or, there are things that we get from that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to think about, even when we think about coaching, like these things are about for you.
Yeah.
And they really are this gift of like, how do you tap into that? Because it is okay to be able to do these things and fulfill these purposes while helping others.
Yeah. Yes.
And coaching helps kind of bridge some of that, because I think when we talk about food safety culture, we still, even though we talk about people first and people focused, there's still this underlying current of, can we take care of people while fully being able to run a business and have profit?
Yeah.
And I think
people are literally asked that question.
People start seeing these things really weave together much closer.
Yeah, they fit. They really do fit together. It's like a successful organization that doesn't treat their people well, eventually that's going to come to head, right? Like eventually people are not going to want to work there. It's going to be hard to retain people, all the above, all the things that we see, right? When you partner your business values, growth, all the things we think about when it comes to a business with taking care of your people and making sure your people are satisfied at the work that they do, but also able to be fulfilled outside of work, you see this, like, I mean, it's almost like I think about like just seeing like lights and stars, and it's like everything lines up where it is just it's just so seamless when that happens. And in the growth, right? Like if you've sat through any of our stuff outside of Real Talk, you see we talk about these numbers, like the increase in profit and the increase in growth and stock price, all of this data exists that shows that it's tied to how well an organization takes care of their people. And coaching is a fantastic way of doing that. To your point, Jill, that it really focus on the person, and really your goal as the coach, right, is to sort of watch them discover themselves by you asking really great questions, right? Because you have that training, you have that background to be able to ask these very pointed, intentional questions while they kind of discover who they want to be and how they want to show up and things about themselves, right, that they might not have been aware of.
Yes. And that kind of leads us into, one of the other roles that wasn't in the title is leader.
Yeah.
Right. That we're not manager, leader. And we probably all know that there's different management leadership styles, manager styles. And of course, management has been more associated with, like, I'm managing people, like tasks and what we do. And leadership is about inspiring.
Yeah.
And so do we have leaders that inspire us? Or do we play in a role as a leader? And are we inspiring people to lean into their gifts, to share where we're going? So we have this alignment and this dream, this vision about what we can do together collectively.
Yeah. I feel like when you look at a leader, they embody, I think, the best parts of the different roles that we've talked about. And the best leaders are really clever about when they step in each of the roles, right? Like when we talked about it a little earlier, like if someone brings you a problem, right? Like, is that the time for you to advise based on your experience? Or is it a time for you to step back and coach and help them discover what's best? There's a time and place for both, right? Great leaders understand when to step into each of these roles. And again, it is so much easier said than done. Like that is a skill that you have to develop and work on over time.
It is, but I also think I always think there are a few little tips or things that you can do as a leader. Because even in that situation, you could just be like, how can I best help you right now? Like, what role would you like me to play?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that just asking what somebody else needs is one of the most powerful things that we can do. Because then by asking, we now know which of these roles someone may be looking for from us.
Yeah, you're talking about that next step. I'm like, well, okay, how do I get there, right? Like, how do I really help understand like how to step into this mentor role or coach role or sponsor role, right? And it starts with that question on what do you need? What do you need? How can I help? Right? And really understand, I like it where it's like you're really trying to understand, well, what is the problem? Like what is the problem that they do need direction from a mentor or advisor, right? Is it that you need to step into the sponsor role and really advocate for them outside and help create this opportunity for them? Or do you need to coach them, actually coach them and help them discover? And you're absolutely right, Jill, starting with that question of what do you need? How can I help? Right? What do you need from me? Like, get people thinking, number one, okay, what do I need? Because I'm here and I'm like, am I here for you to tell me the answer? Am I here for you to help me down a path? Or am I here just to talk and vent? Like, it helps you as a leader, it helps put it back on the person to understand, okay, why are we even having this conversation so I can best support you?
Yeah. And, and I think kind of rolling this back into kind of like with technical experts. So I think back when, I finished a master's and I was working in industry and people were looking for me to be the expert when it came to food safety and all of those things. I was fortunate. I got to go through a program to be a Six Sigma Black Belt. which was awesome because then I had different tools under my belt.
Yeah.
Right. And there's all these tools that we can use to tell us what's happening in the business and how well the business is doing. I still felt like we had gaps.
Oh, yeah.
Right. No matter how much people bought into a project charter, how much we improved, things could fall off just like they do when you do, like corrective actions, and 6 months later, they're still not doing it.
Right.
And I found it fascinating because that's actually when I went back for a second master's in quality management. And that's when the greats like, quality nerds, Joseph Duran and Crosby and Schuhart, right? They were the ones that started seeing that no matter what we had for tools, no matter how great we were for our expertise, the human element side was so important. And of course, we talk about that a lot with food safety culture. And really, we've moved from just the technical to include that. But that really weaves into all of the things we're talking about here. And it's recognizing that there's these different skill sets that we need to be able to be a mentor, to be an advisor, to be a coach, to be a leader.
Yes.
It's not the same.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's just so insightful to think about, because your example and this path that you're talking about, I think that people can relate to that. Like, I'm trying to collect all these tools, but you're collecting these technical tools, right? You're forgetting this piece of people, like you're working with people. And, it makes me think about really great problem solving sessions I've been a part of and really poor problem solving sessions I've been a part of. And they're all using the same tools. Right? They're all using the same problem solving tools. They're all trying to get to the same type of goal. But if you don't include people skills in those problem solving, you start to lose, right? You start to lose the greatest ideas. You start to lose people, right? You start to lose the people element of where should we go next if you're not thinking about that. Or honestly, if you don't have the people skills to be able to inspire, relate, build those relationships, create a safe space to even talk about problems, all of those things that go into problem solving. And it made me think about that as you told your story, because a lot of people just focus on how many different tools can I put in my tool belt, which is awesome, but you also need to include these people skills.
Yes, and these roles.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have these technical tools, and now what about these different roles that I can play or that I need others to play for me? These are all soft skills over here.
Yes.
All the roles we're talking about today are soft skills.
Which is interesting, because I don't think people think about mentorship, advising, sponsorship, coaching, being a leader. It's like we kind of know it's people skills and human skills, right? But we still think we got to get all of these technical things around it in order to be a great mentor, or in order to be a great sponsor, or in order to be a great coach. And sure, some of that is needed, but if you are not remembering people and those people skills you need to develop, then that's when sometimes the role that you play is not the best role to play, or you don't necessarily have the skills to be able to play that role in someone's life.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So kind of think about where we've been. We've talked about these different roles and how they provide support. We've talked about whether you are providing the support or asking for support. They are both active and intentional. We've talked about some of the pitfalls that happen when we think we're playing a role, but maybe we're actually outside of that role.
Right. Yeah.
And how that can pull people off their path, or, bad advice or messages we give people that maybe tell them unconsciously tell them that they don't have the tools to figure this out themselves.
Yeah.
But then also a few of the pros and cons of each one. So, because they all are, while they're similar, there are certainly differences between these roles and even the nuances between.
Yeah. And it's important to understand where you are. Like, as a leader in a space, it's important to understand what role are you playing in your team, what other roles possibly should you be playing, with your team, and then thinking about, right, like a lot of people that's listening is very interested, are very interested in food safety culture and the fact that the dial isn't moving, right? Have you been trying to play in this advisor role a little too long, right? Switch it up. You know, what happens if you play in the coaching space? What happens if you do take a step back and say, what do you need?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because really people can and will figure out how to discover what they need. It's just, can we help make that journey faster and easier?
Yeah.
Or how about meet them where they're at? Because it's not always faster. Sometimes it's about walking the path with them.
Yeah.
To be alone.
Yeah, I was just about to say that because, you know, as sometimes you want to move quickly, right? We all want to move quickly. Sometimes we have to slow down, and you have to allow people to go at the pace that makes sense for them. And really with coaching, what you find is asking those really great questions allows people to discover at the rate that makes sense for them and their being. And so, you know, and that rate might be different than my rate, might be different than your rate, right? And that's okay. And sometimes as a coach, I was thinking about this the other day where it's like, man, I hope I'm being helpful to this person. And then one day it's like a light bulb, right? And it's like, wow, like the discovery that this person has of themselves and the situation that they're in has been so impactful. And it looks different when you discover it yourself versus like if I tried to get you to discover it in a different way.
Yeah, there is an old proverb, and I wish I knew where exactly it came from, but it's the one of the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
Oh, yes.
And often we think about like, well, maybe, right, let's say we're training. Well, the students aren't ready to hear.
Right, yeah.
Or vice versa. But the same proverb provides guidance for our own selves as we think about our own journey. So even as we think about walking along that path, we may want to be 3 miles down the road, but we may not be ready.
Yes.
And right, that will appear when it is the right time. But that also likely means there's other things along the way that need to be uncovered, resolved, or whatever that is before you can get there.
Yes. And it's about trusting that process, right? Trusting that process. Yeah. And being present, right? Being present here. We talk about it all the time just in our business of like, we're doing this and we're like, something is going to line up. Honestly, it's the way we met too, right? Where we're like, we're going to work together. We're not quite sure how. So we should have known these are the conversations we will have in the business, but really having the conversation of like, this makes sense that we're having conversations, right? That we're talking, that we're connected together. How it's going to play out, we're not quite sure, but we're here for the journey, right? And that journey of discovery is important. And if you try to rush it, right, you might be too early, you might be too late, you're not going to have all the tools you actually need to get there. So a piece of it, especially with coaching, I think, is trusting that process.
Trust the process. Just like we always tell people, like with SOPs and manufacturing or whatever else, right? Let's just trust the process.
Trust the process. And in the meantime, learn more about yourself, right? You can never become, you can never have too much self-awareness, right? Like
never.
You want to become more and more aware of yourself. In turn, right? Like you become more and more aware about yourself in situations. So you can pick up on, okay, I need to step into mentorship, or I need to step into advising, or I need to step into coaching. That awareness within itself helps you decide which path to even go down as a leader.
Yes. So that's a good note. Angela, if you're still on, I'm curious, has anything, like what have we talked about today, if anything, that's resonated with you or helped as you've talked about like this mentor for yourself?
Yeah.
Like, provided any new insights or clarity or like next steps for you as you think about that?
Yes.
Either if you want to share them here, or right, you can always email us too. Or because you're in the community. Of course, after this, we're going to continue the conversation in our Catalyst community. So we're curious other perspectives on these roles and what people are looking for, how they've experienced them.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
And if you are out listening, whether you're here live or on replay, think about, who do you need in your circle?
Ooh, I love it, Angela.
What
I like
roles
this.
are people playing?
Sponsor instead of a mentor.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, and it's important to think about, like, which of these do you actually need in your circle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, how many of each do you have? And how many more do you need? Who do you need to drop, right? Like, maybe someone has served an amazing place in your life. Now you're in a different spot. Maybe they need to move from mentor to advisor, or maybe they move from coach, right, to something else. And that's okay. That's a part of that journey.
It is. Awesome. Well, good. Well, if you are just catching the end of this, once again, go out to our website. I probably have, I can navigate. I think we got our we don't have the website. We have our hello at Food Safety Catalyst. You can always email us if you're unsure. But if you go out to foodsafetycatalyst.com, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, it says join our community. And it's free, it's open, it's a place where we get to have some conversation that isn't tracked by social media algorithms or anything like that. It is just private for our community to be able to continue having some conversations and learn together.
Yeah. And because there's a community, yeah. And because there's a community, there's so many different types of people there in different paths, right? So when you really think about, how do I lean in and have different conversations with different people?
We're
do it.
And we're just getting started. So we love having you be there.
Yes, absolutely. So join us in community.
Yes. Well, let's see. Next week, we have a guest coming on, and we're going to talk about food safety and leadership again, but a different perspective from somebody who has been in the industry for decades and played a substantial role in the retail space. So we look forward to having them on and sharing them with you. That will be released tomorrow. So
yes, super excited about that.
Yes. But of course, we will be back here next week, same time, same place. And if there's a topic that you wish we would cover while we're on Real Talk, drop us a note. Let us know. And if you're out there, you're like, I'd like to be a guest and talk about something, drop us a note and let us know, because we're here to create new perspectives and new possibilities within the food industry.
Absolutely. And we want to talk about what's most important to you. That's why this exists. So yes, please drop us a note, send us an email, connect with us on LinkedIn, send us a message, text us if you have our number. However, reach out to us, let us know.
Yes. And thank you for joining us, and make it a great week.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.